Summertime means lots of no-shows, client cancellations, and generally everyone's doing mentally well because the sun is doing our job here, which is a beautiful thing, don't get me wrong. But that also means lots of extra time for TikToks. So I wanted to talk about something that came up in one of these podcasts that I had chatted on before, but that cardinal big statement, Lokhi ki Kehngey or Log ki Kehngey. And I want to kind of explain and share my thoughts as to where that statement and mentality and heavy focus comes from for a lot of our parents. So I think originally when we're tribal, community, village dwelling individuals, that means our survival and safety hinges upon our reputation and more specifically our network. So if you know how nowadays we say your network equals your net worth, well, back then our network was the difference between life or death. If we're down and out, who's going to help us? Our fellow person. Who's going to give us the resource that we might be needing or be scarce with? Who's going to take us to a far out medical center? It's going to be our neighbor, right? It's going to be our fellow community members. And we're more likely to help people who we like. So he or she who is well liked is more likely to survive and advance. Our primitive wiring is still very, very well established inside of us. But of course, the older generations are a lot closer to that primitive wiring because in terms of evolution, we're second generation individuals here, right? So our parents are immigrants, which means their wiring still comes from their original formulas. So being, let's say, farmers means your literal ability, your bread and butter, your ability to sustain yourself comes upon your network, your community connections, your relationships. Interpersonal relationships were the end all and be all. This is why they're so fixated on making sure reputation doesn't get tarnished, that people aren't gossiping about you, that you're not going to get shunned or ostracized, because that could mean that you're not going to be able to survive and feed your family at the end of the day. Nowadays, things are a lot different. We have corporate jobs. Our 9 to 5 save us from needing to be those rural village dwelling individuals who only eat based upon how popular they are, how well liked they are. Being established no longer hinges upon your connections. Well, in some industries it does, but for the most part, you can get by even if no one likes you. So it's just some food for thought, because I see a lot of content chastising and villainizing our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and our uncles. And don't get me wrong, there can be a lot of talk. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of toxic aspects to prioritizing the collective's opinion over your own children's, and understanding is not justification. So I really want to drive that point home and clarify that when I talk about the other side of the coin, when I try to go deeper and explain what's going on behind the curtain, it's not to excuse or validate or justify what has been going on in the culture, because of course there's very severe repercussions. There's that gender discrimination tendency. There's children being pressured to follow a certain life path just because it's more societally acceptable. So yes, there's real negative shadow sides to this mentality, but I feel like knowledge is power. And if you can understand their psyche and the psychology behind their strong stances and a certain type of parenting and that heavy control and dominance, then you can work around it and you can really use more compassion and empathy to change what's going on in your home, and to also inform the way you might have unconscious biases informing the way you parent going forward. So that's the only way that change can really happen. That was a really long-winded response, but I feel like it's important to have these conversations, but to have them with a lot of tact and a zoomed out, unbiased, really objective lens. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Thanks for listening to this. See you next time.